Due to human activity, the world's forests have been shrinking for thousands of years. Trees have been a vital resource to humans as a building material and source of fuel. As the human population has grown over the last few centuries, deforestation has accelerated, which has resulted in many forests being nearly wiped out as urban areas have expanded. Fortunately, as the human population becomes more developed, there has been a decrease in the rate of deforestation. In certain parts of the world, we have seen deforestation actually reverse. In parts of Europe where nations are highly developed and populations are older, tree consumption has diminished and forests have steadily been increasing in size. The United States has managed to remain in a roughly steady state despite a population increasing at a much more rapid pace than Europe. The United States and other developed nations have programs in place to protect forested regions and even help forests recover. While developed nations have made significant progress in minimizing their role in deforestation, the majority of the Earth's largest forests are at high risk of disappearing. But if so much progress is being made, how can so many forests still be at high risk? Most of this is due to where many of the world's largest forests are located. 6 of the world's largest forests are tropical or subtropical rainforests, mostly located within the Tropic of Cancer and the Tropic of Capricorn. The countries that these forests lie within are still what are considered developing nations. This means that many people in these nations still use trees as a primary fuel source for cooking and heating homes. These nations have benefited from many of the medical advancements that have been made over the past few centuries, and as a result have large populations, which causes more forests to be cleared to make way for urbanization. Many of the world's countries are caught somewhere between highly developed and underdeveloped. These are put under the category of developing countries. Using China as an example, there are highly developed regions like Beijing and Shanghai, but also underdeveloped areas within the interior. This means that there is still a large amount of tree consumption each year, paired with some form of state planning aimed at preserving forested areas. China's massive program, the Great Green Wall, has planted millions of trees to prevent a large portion of the country becoming an arid wasteland. But if China has a massive program to reconstruct forests, then what's the problem? While China should be applauded for its efforts, a key factor in a forest's health is its biodiversity, or the variance of plant and animal species found therein. This is important to a forest's ability to perpetuate its existence into the future. While global warming has been the focus of climate change for the last few decades, the truth of the matter is that climate change in the long term can be very unpredictable. A stray asteroid, a mega eruption from one of the Earth's volcanoes, nuclear war, and even the Earth's tilt on its axis can change the Earth's climate for thousands of years. Biodiversity is the key to surviving such unpredictable events. With a plethora of plant and animal species, when environmental conditions change, some species are better equipped to adapt to said change. Within an ecosystem with a lot of diversity, there are a number of species better suited for more rainfall or less rainfall, for slightly higher temperatures or slightly lower temperatures. Coming back to China's Great Green Wall, one of the problems with it is that there are only a handful of tree species that are actually being planted. A healthy forest that can sustain life and grow on its own has thousands of tree species. The lack of diversity in tree species therefore leaves little chance of the forest surviving on its own over the long term. If China wants its project to succeed, it will either need to carefully observe and monitor the newly forested areas while it waits for new tree species to develop on their own, or it will need to increase the diversity of the trees that it is planting. With mixed results on the state of the world's forests, we will dive into the world's 10 largest forests to learn a little bit more about them. Number 10. In the far east of Russia, far from Moscow, lies the Primoria Forest. It is nestled in a unique part of the world, being surrounded by China, North Korea, and Japan, but held by Russia. Unlike Siberia, this region of Russia was far enough south to avoid the ice cover that occurred during the last ice age. As a result, this forest offers a much greater diversity of plant, tree, and animal species as compared with other forests of Russia. It is in a unique geographical location at the intersection of the Eurasian continent and Pacific Ocean, as well as in between overlapping boundaries of subtropical and temperate zones. This forest mixes hot-loving subtropical animal and plant species with cold-loving temperate species. You can find black bears, leopards, and tigers all within this forest, one of the only forests on Earth which can make that claim. The forest largely acts as a nature preserve to help endangered species recover without human interaction. Number 9 is one of the world's most rapidly shrinking forests. This used to be part of a much larger forested region in Myanmar, which is located in Southeast Asia. Caught between the Indian and Pacific Oceans, it is consequently one of the wettest regions on the planet. With ample rainfall, this region has been dominated by tropical forestation for most of its history, but due to population growth and extensive logging, the future of this rainforest is in question. Due to the destruction of the forest, multiple species including the Asian elephant, sun bear, and Asian tiger are facing risk of extinction in this area. With Myanmar being ranked one of the 140th most corrupt nations out of the 180 on Earth, a 2021 military coup d'etat to replace the government, and the occasional airstrike to destroy civilian concertgoers, it is unlikely that forest conservation efforts are going to crop up anytime soon. This forest may cease to exist within the next few generations. Number 8 is a temperate rainforest running north to south along the west coast of South America. It is boxed in by the Andes Mountains, the Pacific Ocean, the cold south, and the Mediterranean center of Chile. The Valdivian rainforest is temperate, which means that it does not receive as much rainfall as tropical rainforests, but it's also not quite as hot. The undergrowth beneath the trees is comprised of dense bamboo and ferns. Such dense undergrowth can explain why this forest is home to the world's smallest deer and South America's smallest wild cat species. Unlike the previous forests in Myanmar, Chile has a more stable government and a GDP per capita nearly 13 times greater than Myanmar. This has resulted in a more organized conservation effort, which currently protects more than a quarter of this forest. Chile has also promoted its ecotourism industry, encouraging visitors to national parks in the area, with the revenue going toward additional conservation efforts. Number 7 takes us to Oceania, the forest that covers the majority of the island of Borneo into Indonesia. As many of the forests on this list, it is shrinking due to logging and lands being converted to commercial land use. Looking at a population density map of Indonesia, you can see that the island of Borneo is not densely populated, which has helped preserve this rainforest. But Indonesia has a major problem. Its capital is sinking. Jakarta swells to nearly 35 million people during the day as commuters from the surrounding area show up for work. This massive population and urbanization led to the depletion of underground water supplies, which has caused the city to sink nearly 7 inches per year. Paired with rising sea levels, Jakarta is subject to frequent flooding. This is why the Indonesian government has announced plans to move the capital to a newly planned city, Nusantara. This will situate the nation's capital on the same island as the Borneo rainforest, which will undoubtedly lead to additional deforestation as the population swells and land is repurposed for urban and industrial use. The rate at which this forest shrinks is sure to accelerate moving forward. Number 6 takes us to the New Guinea rainforest, which is one of the world's best preserved forests in modern time. Such a well-preserved forest has allowed immense biodiversity to thrive in this region. It is home to an estimated 5 to 7% of all of Earth's plant and animal species. Rare forms of life like the orchid, the world's largest butterfly, the Queen Alexandria's birdwing, and the world's longest lizard, the Komodo dragon, thrive here. Indigenous people that have limited contact with the outside world still live in this forest and the surrounding area. The primary reason this forest has remained so well preserved is that the Papua New Guinea government has been under pressure from the international community to commit to sustainable development. The Chevron Oil Company, Greenpeace, the World Bank, International Monetary Fund, and the Australian government offer funding to assist with this sustainable development and criticize excessive logging and habitat destruction. As the developed world watches the developing world, develop, efforts are put into place to prevent the type of forest destruction that we have seen in Europe and North America during industrialization, to varying degrees of success. The African continent has a strangely symmetrical climate. Most of Africa is covered by arid climates to the north and the south. As you move toward the center, the climate turns into savanna, then tropical savanna, and finally at the center we find the Congo rainforest. Most of the Democratic Republic of the Congo is covered by this rainforest, and this forest has suffered the lowest deforestation rates in the world for most of the last 30 years. A lot of this is due to less pressure for development and urbanization. While these forces still threaten deforestation, the Democratic Republic of the Congo is where the majority of the world's diamond mines are located. Miners can be forced underground with low skill level to dig diamonds from the earth. With much of the nation's economy focused on low value-added economic activity such as resource extraction, and with the ability to depend on low-cost labor to line their pockets, Central African leadership feels little pressure to focus on more advanced economic development. This rainforest is less dense than its peers in Southeast Asia and South America, but its trees are also comparatively larger. Numbers 4, 3, and 2 on this list were once part of the same forest system, but due to continental drift and geographical changes, the forest now exists as 3 separate systems. The taiga or boreal forests cover northern Europe, Siberia, Alaska, and Canada. These forests support much less biodiversity than tropical rainforests and are mostly comprised of fir trees as opposed to broadleaf trees. Mammals such as wolves, bears, foxes, and beavers are still found in large numbers here. This forested region forms a ring around the North Pole and absorbs more carbon from the atmosphere than the rest of the world's forests combined. The largest and best preserved of these forests can be found in North America. There have been increased efforts to restore forest cover in Siberia, but Russia lacks the funds, organization, and impetus to fight deforestation on the same scale as North America. It should come as no surprise that the largest forest on Earth is the Amazon rainforest. This forest contains the greatest number of indigenous people on the planet. As logging companies delve deeper into the forest, there are increasing reports of violence and loss of life as indigenous people fight off the intrusive loggers. Millions of years ago, this forest extended almost to the southern end of South America. Climate fluctuations over the last 34 million years have allowed savanna regions to expand along these former tropics, causing the Amazon to shrink in size. The forest has existed for an estimated 55 million years, and its borders have contracted and expanded as the Earth's climate is in constant flux. The Amazon receives most of its fertilization from the Sahara Desert. As winds pick up dust and sand from the Sahara and enters the atmosphere, it is blown southward and westward. It is estimated that nearly 182 million tons of dust are absorbed by the Amazon each year. The dust contains vast amounts of phosphorus, which is crucial for plant growth. With some more knowledge about the world's forests, it is fairly apparent that the forests that have the brightest future are located in Europe and the American continents. Unfortunately, the rate of deforestation in Asia and Oceania are only likely to increase moving forward. If you care about the state of the world's forests and want to contribute, your best bet would be donating money to any of the major forest conservation projects found in Europe or North America. As more people come together to protect the world's forests, we are helping to ensure a brighter future for the Earth's many forms of life.